Hello and welcome to But the Ads Are the Best Bits, a programme 100% developed, written and made here at Bournemouth University's Media School, the place where the very first degree in advertising was launched 21 years ago.
In today's programme, we will be reviewing 3 contemporary advertising campaigns, taking a critical perspective. Then we'll be discussing these ads with some advertising students who make up our hit or miss panel. We will take a look at the hot topics making news in the ad industry press. And finally, we will be glancing many years back to see what ad campaigns were salient and what they were saying.
As I was pondering which ads to include in today's review section, I came across a report about advertising's contribution to society. At the beginning of this report, I was amazed to read this from Rory Sutherland. Yes, that's the Rory who used to head up the IPA. And I quote, "I'd rather be thought of as evil than useless." I'll repeat that just to ensure the profound meaning of the words sink in. I'd rather be thought of as evil than useless. It's certainly a soundbite likely to draw attention and something that without doubt is worth pondering if, like us, you consider advertising to be important. Note I didn't say positive. Maybe ads can be useless and evil at the same time, or even good and useful. Talking of useful, what I find interesting is how the notion of compassion, a supporting, soft, feminine, gentle, quiet, reflective notion, can often be portrayed, sometimes inadvertently and indirectly, in commercial settings. And what's more hard-edged, firm, masculine than commercial advertising, where in effect a stranger breaks into your space and your time, called ad breaks, and tries to sell you something. The first ad certainly takes a perspective on good and bad, useless and worthy, and it absolutely oozes compassion, at least for some of the people it features.
Those first young men, the pioneers, the aviators, building superhighways in an unknown sky, leaving wives and children in their snug homes with just a kiss and a promise to return, roaring into the clouds to battle wind and stars. Their safety systems built of brain and heart. They landed where there were no lights, transforming strange names from tall tales into pictures on postcards home. And those next young men, travelling further, faster, higher than any in history, are the ones who followed them, who skinned the edge of space, the edge of heaven, the edge of dreams.
Speedbird 1, Speedbird 1. Clear for takeoff. Clear for takeoff for takeoff.
And we follow them up there to live by an unbreakable promise. The same 4 words stitched into every uniform of every captain who takes their command. To fly, to serve.
Is it a recruitment ad? Is it a rallying call for the RAF? Well, this much talked about ad from long-standing ad agency for British Airways, BBH, is telling us that nostalgia is not only a nice feeling to have, but can be productive for the present. We are because of the past. In this case, we're pioneers, principled, and let's be honest, a bit pricklish too. It feels like a kind of corporatist response to the Virgin 25-year celebration of vibrancy, sexiness and bright red indulgence. It's saying, but our club's about something more classy, more established, more British. On the one level, it might all be a highly expensive piece of PR inspired by industrial relations, because BA have had some very bad recent history in terms of relations with their own employees. So producing a glossy film that places them at the centre, as the hero if you like, might not be a bad move. And I'm looking forward to the TUC's response. I can just picture Brendan Barber now in an ad. No doubt born out of the notion that BA simply cannot compete on price or speed, or well, very much really, but it can remember back because it was part of history, a time when flying really was exciting, thrill-seeking, daring and dash. So it takes viewers to a place where Ryanair, EasyJet and the like simply can't exist. And on this level, beyond product class and brand, it's about the ideals that giving is better than receiving, that beyond jobs and careers there's a sense of duty. It conjures up not what our country can do for you, but more what you can do for the country. I know, an Americanism. And it's certainly, definitely and defiantly British. British bulldog spirit, but without a cause. Fine poetic words, but without fitting purpose. Pilot as hero, without the need for disaster. And indeed, that would be the last image this film needs in terms of its audience. It's all about smooth, calm, gleaming. Even the noise effect are the swoosh of the Superman's cloak. So it's James Bond-esque without the bad guy, controlled thrills without any spills. We reckon it's best viewed in a cinema just before an action movie where not only does the goodie win, but he wins in style. Will it have Michael O'Leary quivering in his boots? Well, I doubt it. But in a fair wind, it might just get some of us thinking about flying in ways we haven't for quite some time. The second ad is far less grand in its aspirations for creativity, production values than the first. But in many ways, it has grander and greater aspirations for the kind of society we might become. Perhaps even that we are. This series of ads is from a rather quiet, understated ad agency, MWO, along with Airside, a specialist in the genre of animated film that treats its audience, well, as a bit like they need to help with thinking, and so they resort to the dot-to-dot colouring book technique. The idea of service is at the heart of this campaign too. Only here the notion of service is used overtly and in comparison and contrast to another form of national service, that is the NHS. The occasional grey tones we see represent not only when we feel ill, but they're really a metaphor for the apparent gloomy state of our health service. Talk about kicking a man when he's down. The ad depicts a journey, the type they want us to think illness follows. We find out we're ill, we have treatment, and then we get better, and we return to the bright sunshine and blue skies, back to our multicoloured, shiny lives. It's the Disney version of human biology, where importantly, and this is important, our destiny is firmly up to us. We just have to make the right choice. The brand's the solution. No waiting rooms full of snotty kids, no cold hands examining our aches, just a well-manicured office like hospital without a car park attendant in sight.
I'd been with Simply Health for some time when I was told I needed major surgery. So I rang them about my health plan and spoke to Anna, who became my personal contact. Anna not only helped me find a consultant straight away, she also arranged all my appointments. But apart from that, she even called me, just to see how I was getting on.
Join us at Simply Health. Why? Because we can be bothered.
Even more clearly demonstrated in the second version of the same campaign is the real message being drilled home to viewers in this campaign. Illness isn't the problem, having to rely on a publicly funded organisation is. Notice too how in this version Simply Health tells us that they've been around longer than the NHS.
Almost 140 years ago, we started our local hospital Saturday funds. Back then there was no NHS, and that bothered us. So we asked ordinary people to chip in a little every week to make an extraordinary difference. For simple ways of providing towards your medical insurance and everyday healthcare needs, go to simplyhealth.co.uk and bother us. Simply Health. We can be bothered.
So you want good service? You want people to care for you? Fine. You can have it. It's called commercialised compassion. The last ad we show you is from South Africa, made by Ogilvy Johannesburg. No doubt made to win awards, and it did get a lion, though only a bronze, which I imagine surprised and disappointed in equal measure. Its sponsors are not a global corporation, and just so you're absolutely clear, it's not trying to sell drum kits, honestly.
Neighbors and residents across the wall are complaining about the drumming noise.
Yeah, but you know, you're living in a community here. You can't be doing this, you know, in the middle of a complex.
It's such a noise. It's really, you can hear every single beat. Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Ben, what's this?
That's Brian.
I know it's Brian. It says Brian here. I'm not stupid.
Oh,
yeah, well done, Ben. Lovely. Oh, you see.
I'm not sure I need to say too much here, though I will. The commercial itself was well over 2 minutes long, and actually it says very little. Its use of pseudo-social science in the form of an experiment is a way of lending it credibility. The subtext really is, this could be in your neighbourhood too, it just happens to be this one. Its pace casts an interesting shadow too. Compared to many other ads, it's not only slow, it's also rather drama-less. More important is what does not happen than what does. The reverse of what it shows is what's required from the audience. Do as I say, not as I do. That is, act fast. I'm not convinced about the cat. Feels like the director got a little frustrated with the lack of action. Notice too how the first protest received by the drummer was in the form of a note, a petition from a collection of annoyed neighbours. This tells us quite a lot about neighbourliness in 2012. Less caring about the local community and more, do not intrude in my private space or else. The theme, beyond my starting point of finding compassion in places we might not expect, commercial ads, all three of the ads in different ways speak to a tension, to a struggle, to establish the so-called proper line between public and private. And so to me, they all speak to what it means to be civic today. Does real service to each other and genuine compassion for fellow humans now have to be achieved through our buying into brand offerings?
Okay, so now we've watched the ads and we've heard the considered and the thoughtful and analytical views of Dr. Scullion about these three current ad campaigns. Now it's time to put the ads to an even more robust test, popular or public opinion, with our hit or miss panel. On today's panel, we have three students all studying advertising here at the Media School. They are Jim, who is our third year student in our final year now. We have Athena, who's a second year student, and Zoe, who's our first year student. Welcome all of you and thank you for taking part. So firstly, I'd like your views on what you think of these ads that you have just seen, these three ads. Zoe, perhaps you'd like to start us off.
the British Airways one, I wasn't... Originally I thought, okay, so it looks pretty, but who are you selling to? Because like Richard said, it's very much a recruitment ad, maybe for a pilot, or is it for the older generation who remember those times? But then once I looked at it a bit more, I sort of got the impression that, well, we're good enough for pilots, why aren't we good enough for you? And it was, I don't know, it might be because I'm quite cynical looking at it, but it didn't sell to me, not at all.
It didn't do it for you?
No.
I think you might have a different opinion on that ad.
Yeah, I actually disagree. I quite like the British Airways advert. I think it's incredibly... If you are British, you are very proud of what Britain has achieved through the war, and I think it's very similar to the Hovis advert in the sense where it actually shows the history of Britain and what Britain has gone through and been through. And I think there is a scene in which a woman and a baby is shown. I just think it's this idea of the generations in which Britain has come. And although I would agree with Zoe in the sense where she says it feels like they're advertising for a pilot as such and not actually selling British Airways as a company as a whole. They cannot compete with EasyJet or Ryanair in terms of price or anything like that, but I don't think they need to. I think British Airways is in a class of its own, and I think it's a very sophisticated advert, and it really just puts it there leaps and bounds above all other companies, in my opinion.
So you think it's really about a brand building exercise? We are the best.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, I think it's not so much trying to get more customers. I think it's trying to retain the customers it already has. I think if you go with British Airways, you go because you already go with British Airways, like in terms of being British and being proud to be that.
Good, interesting, thank you. Jim, what did you make of the ads we just saw?
I think I would agree with Zoe about the BA one, that the audience, it seems a little unclear. Maybe the message isn't quite right, but I kind of thought that, with the Virgin Atlantic adverts, they thought let's do something like that, but they maybe not really thought about it properly. But it's emotional, and I think Athena was right when she said that it makes you proud to be British, or proud to be with British Airways.
Because what I would say was with the Virgin Atlantic one, what are you proud to be? Sexy? Classy? What is their message? Whereas with British Airways, it's very firm, it's very clear in my opinion, whereas Virgin Atlantic is just not as clear. The brand of Richard Branson's just not there for me.
I do wonder whether it's looking, Zoe, at Britishness through very rose-tinted glasses. Is this really is this authentic Britishness? Is that what your problem is with the ad?
I think it's trying to be something it used to be and telling everyone, this is how it used to be, try and relive it now, but that's not Britain now. And we don't use aeroplanes because it reminds us of what it used to be. We use them because they're cheaper, or they have quite good quality service. And I don't know, I don't think it sort of
It's aimed at a very niche audience.
Yeah,
a niche audience.
Very niche audience. I think the older generation, without a doubt.
Okay.
When you're young, you go for EasyJet and Ryanair.
And the older generation is a very niche audience as well.
I think it's just trying to retain its sort of core values and trying to remind you, you know, we have had some downfalls, but we are still here. We have been around for a long time. You know, believe in us a bit, please.
So very much the feel-good factor then, I think we're talking about. Okay, so let's leave that there. What about moving on to what might link the three ads that we're looking at this week? Jim, what are your thoughts on the theme that runs through them?
I thought they all highlighted a problem with society. So the power one is obvious, that we're quite apathetic towards things that really matter.
In this case, domestic violence.
Yes. Then for the Simply Health one, it points out that people don't have faith in their health service, that we don't believe they care about us, and they need to reassure us that they do. And you know, we should know they care about us. They're our health service. And then for the BA one, I think for me it highlights a problem which is a concern for all advertising, because I found it quite fake. I thought, you know, in face of the Virgin Atlantic adverts, it feels as if they're just trying to be emotional. They've seen it works and they thought, let's do that.
Okay.
But I don't think it's truthful, and I think if that comes across to audiences, then that's how advertising gets this reputation of saying anything to sell.
Interesting. Okay. So authenticity might be something that's worth looking at more closely in each of these ads. Okay, well I think what we'll do is move on to the bit that we've been waiting for, which is to vote for hit and miss. So if you'd like to pick up your placards for hit and miss. And we'll focus on the first ad, which is the BA ad, which has generated most of our discussion today. Would you like to vote for a hit or miss for the BA advert? We have 2 misses and a hit. Thank you very much. And then for the second ad, the Simply Health NHS ad, which we didn't speak about too much. What do we think about that one? A hit or a miss? A conclusive miss. Thank you. And then finally, we want to talk about the domestic violence ad that we just mentioned. A hit or a miss? And a conclusive hit for that one. Thank you very much. In that case, I think we need to see the ad again.
Neighbors and residents across the wall are complaining about the drumming noise.
Yeah, but you know, you're living in a community here. You can't be doing this, you know, in the middle of a complex.
Such a noise. It's really, you can hear every single beat. Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Ben, what's this?
Oh yeah, let's check out that's Brian.
No, no, it's Brian. It says Brian here. I'm not stupid.
Oh yeah, well done, Ben. Lovely. Oh, you see.
Like most industries, the advertising trade print and produce a swathe of online comment about itself. And we've taken a critical glance at what the media that represents this promotional industry has been saying recently. But before turning our attention to the advertising trade media and in keeping with some of the themes in this week's programme, this article from The Observer caught our attention. The focus of this story is on this recent ad from PETA.
This is Jessica. She suffers from BWV-AKT boom. Boyfriend went vegan and knocked the bottom out of me. A painful condition that occurs when boyfriends go vegan and can suddenly bring it like a tantric porn star. For Jessica, it's too late.
Oh, you're back. You feeling better?
Please go to bwaktboom.com and learn to go vegan safely.
And the disquiet is fairly obviously the way in which it parodies ads for charities supporting the victims of physical abuse. So is this just a wanton attempt to create sufficient interest and outrage that the ad will go viral? Or is this a legitimate brand building exercise? Richard, have you had a look at this ad? What do you make of it?
I have, yes, and like you, I think I can understand the disquiet. I'd sum it up by saying it's an ad made by men who clearly don't have very much empathy with the undertones that they're trying to allude to. So I too am not impressed.
Okay, thank you. One of the more interesting and considered sources of reflection on the industry comes in the form of the Ad Literate blog. It's written by Richard Huntington, who is the Director of Strategy for Saatchi & Saatchi. What's getting the Saatchis exercised at the moment is the future of the high street. You know, that's the place we used to go and do our shopping on Saturday mornings before the invention of Ocado and Amazon and The Guardian online meant that we have no longer any real reason to ever leave the house. Key to Ad Literate's analysis is the idea that one of the primary factors that will help rejuvenate high streets is social contact. We're all painfully familiar with brands that want to socialise with us in 140 characters or less online. The Ad Literate analysis is that a vital element in reviving or perhaps even resurrecting the local high street will come when brands are able to take their phony online socialising and transfer it back into the high street. Whether this will necessitate staff and insurance agencies dressing up as animals with faux Eastern European accents remains to be seen. But in the great advertising tradition of revivalism, how surprised would we be to see brands reverting to techniques of advertising pioneered by Victorians? Richard, do you think there's any future in this idea of taking the social marketing revolution back into the high street?
I doubt it, because of the word you used, phony. And if it's phony, it will become even more apparent when it's live on the high street, so no.
So, when you're next out and about on your local high street, even if the people you meet aren't being all that sociable, you can always hope that the billboards will be. In a development that recalls the nightmare or utopia, depending on your point of view, of personalised advertising from Minority Report, The Independent recently carried a story regarding intelligent advertising, that by the use of a high-definition camera installed in the ad itself can tell the gender of the person looking at it. The ad is for Plan UK, a children's charity focusing on the education of girls in some of the world's poorest countries. And the idea is that if you're a woman, you get to see the ad. But if you're a man, you just see a message directing you to the charity's website. According to the charity's chief executive, Marie Staunton, she says, "We're not giving men and boys the chance to see the full ad on this occasion, so they get a glimpse of what it's like to have basic choices taken away." It's a nice gimmick and the sort of technology which, well, might go down well at a children's party, but I hope for the sake of Plan UK that it doesn't end up in the European Court of Human Rights with someone protesting that their right to be advertised to has been infringed. Finally, on a rather lighter note, this month's Creative Review magazine digs up the fetid corpse of advertising slogans once again. It's maybe a sign of the times that although you either love it or hate it, and because you're worth it, both make it into their top 20 slogans of all time. But there's no space for the classic "go to work on an egg," or "Guinness is good for you," or "always the bridesmaid, never the bride," or indeed my favourite, "full of Eastern promise," the Great Turkish Delight ad, if you're interested. In the 1990s, someone started a rumour on the internet that we had all become too sophisticated and media savvy to be persuaded by the apparently cheesy one-liner, and the slogan seemed to fall from favour. But perhaps it's time for the slogan to make a comeback.
Ah, Bisto. McDonald's, I'm loving it. Compare the meerkat, Simples.
It's got to be Sit at Bang, innit? Bang, and the dirt is gone.
At the Renault Clio one. Hey Bobby, what's the French for va-va-voom?
Nokia, connecting people, that's on quite a lot.
Oh yeah, Durex, play safe.
Skittles. Taste the rainbow. Future's bright, the future's orange.
Holidays are coming, holidays are coming. Cool.
The advertising slogan. No other technique looks like it or lasts like it. Personally, I would never leave home without one, because you're never alone with the slogan. Richard, slogans. What do we think? Should they be making a comeback?
We think they're great, yes. Just do it is what I'd say to a brand manager with slogans. For instance, take a break.
Have a Kit Kat.
Or have a break, have a Kit Kat.
Have a
Even, you can always remember them. What about a million housewives every day? Pick up a tin of beans and say, beans means
Heinz, of course.
See, we all know slogans. We love them. And finally today, I'd like to take you back to the early 1960s, well before I was born, and show you two ads from the same agency promoting the same product, a now long defunct brand of stout. Stout, I hear you say? What's that? I'm not showing you these pieces because of their artistic merit, brilliant copy, or innovative production values, nor even because as a kid, my dad used to bribe me with crisps to be good, as he left me outside his local so he could down a few pints of this stuff. No, they talk to something more important. They talk to our time.
Old Gran Hardy was saying that her old dad hasn't drunk his Mackerson for years. I said, but he has one every night. She says, but he don't drink it, he chews it. He's that partial to the taste. It looks good, tastes good, and it certainly does you good. Mackerson. Beautiful.
Flat cap, craggy face, Gran Hardy, you can almost picture the old battle axe. And our man sitting on his favourite bar stool. This is the customer. No need for straight teeth, no need to be concerned about the clash of patterns on his shirt collar and his cap. Indeed, who really cares what lines he has, so long as he gets the last line in. For the 1960s was a time of jingle, simple alliteration and strapline. Looks good, tastes good, and, oh hang on a minute, obviously political correctness clearly existed 50 years ago, because in this version of the ad, the last part of the strapline is changed to, and it certainly does you good. And that's from the original, which was, and by golly it does you good. Far more memorable, but the golly had to go. Still, product as hero, product benefits, clarity of target audience, and empathy with the audience in the form of her indoors. The second ad for Mackerson was aired about 2 years later, and what a transformation. No, it's not suddenly contender for Creative of the Year, but in its own little way, it's telling us that the winds of change have arrived in Britain.
There's a promise in a glass of Mackerson. There's a promise in a glass of Mackerson. There's a promise.
So now we have a stout trying to appeal to a brand new segment, the youth. And it's suggesting a new place, a new time, and a new purpose for drinking it. This is for the rebel with a nice haircut, for the girl with independence. This is signalling things have changed. Dancing and not ballroom dancing is now allowed. Parties at home without the parents there. And gramophone records playing, well, quite loud. Mackerson and fun? No, surely not. Indeed, it wasn't to be. This was a brand stretch gone too far. And anyway, stout makes a right mess of the carpet.
To reminisce of a simpler time. What's interesting is actually just how much we can glean and unpack from taking a closer look at ads like these that can really tell us a great deal about the time they were from. Next week, we review a bunch of ads that might be best described under the theme Popular Tales of Postmodern Folklore.
Remember not to flick channels between programmes, or someone with a lot of common sense is quite likely to say, in a complaining way, but the ads are the best bits. See you next week.